Peter, welcome to the Payal Nanjiani Leadership Podcast. What an honor to have you here with us.
Thank you very much, Payal. Appreciate it.
Great, and you've been into this business transformation. And before we dig deep into it, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what got you to actually do what you're doing?
Oh, wow. I've been involved with energy basically all my life, being an electrical engineer from manufacturing to utilities.
Mhm.
When I started my advisory business, one of my clients was Gemini CEO, and we worked together on a number of very large projects. And one of the questions that he was battling with was transforming Zimfra from where it was to a better place. So I decided to step out of my business and actually lead Zimfra. It was impossible to do anything as an advisor, as a managing director, thinking I'm going to do it for a year or maybe two, and then go back and do what I normally do. And here I am, 5 years later. It's a very successful business, and I'm doing that plus many other things. So I'm enjoying it.
Well, that's nice. So, when you talk about transformation of business, what does it look like?
Yeah. Look, it's interesting because transformation happens on multiple levels. We were focusing initially on basics, improve profitability, improve safety, and then slowly we moved into improve the capacity of the team, and then improve culture. So there were a number of areas we had to look at. Once profitability went where we wanted to be after 12 months, then I took the rest of the 4 years together with my team to actually change the company and become a reasonably strong player within the Australian market.
Okay. But in my work with so many leaders, I have seen, and I was speaking to one of the leaders here in India, and he was saying that they are bringing about transformation in their company. But we don't hear this word very often. Many leaders are very afraid to experiment and take risks because transformation means you have to try new things. So, what makes us afraid to dig deep and try out new things?
Well, I think there are two types of transformations. Some people transform a very good company into an excellent one. That's when you take a lot of risk because you already are in a position of having to change a company that's performing well. And of course, it can go both ways. It can go better or it can go worse. And then the second type of transformation is a company is not going well, and there's only one way to success, and basically every change makes a difference. From my perspective, I've been involved in both, but this particular last one has been one where it was easy. We started from a position we didn't want to be, and then basically we transformed from there. I'll be probably having another conversation with you in about 5 years' time because now we're looking at Zimfra where it is and maybe doubling or tripling the size of the business. It's already successful, so it's a different type of transformation.
Okay. So when like you said that when the company is not doing good and then the only way that they have is to make some changes and transform. Which one do you think is better? Usually people should keep transforming as the business is progressing, or do you see more people waiting for something to happen and then transforming?
Well, depends. The board of directors have a significant influence into the transformation. Generally, business, one of the things that tends to affect the business is average success that leads to complacency. And when you're complacent, to actually change, there are other leaders that come from outside that want to change and see the capacity, or directors initiate it. Management tends to consider a job well done when the business is consistent and steady.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So like basically when the business is going steady is when you feel that even when the business is going steady, it's best to think about innovation and new ways of doing things.
Well, yes, I guess from a cultural perspective, there's an American philosopher, Robert Hutchins, who said societies who stop criticizing will not endure. So we're afraid from criticizing, we're afraid from looking for better because things are reasonably good. Now, it's the same with companies. The moment you or one doesn't try to actually get better and everything you do seems to be okay, well, generally it won't endure because competition and the market will require more and eventually you can't be successful.
Okay. So when you say about transformation that, a business wants to get better, say transformation is always to get better. What are the
Hmm.
stages of business transformation? Where does it start from and how does it progress?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll share my last perspective. You have to start from understanding because not everything in a business needs to change and transform. So I started from a view of there must be a lot of good that we need to retain. Identifying that was actually going down to the values, the culture, the personalities, and everybody likes to look at weaknesses. I started from strengths. So I thought, well, let's see what strengths have we got. And are those strengths the one that we can actually continue over a period of time? Now, once you understand or one understands where you are, then you think, well, where exactly do I want to go? I'm not telling you anything new. What is the desired culture in this business?
Mm.
Some people like to look 10, 20, 30, 40 years ahead. I was a bit more short-sighted. I was just looking at what we're going to do in the next 3 years to actually change. And I've been talking to a lot of peers and mentors, and they told me, well, Peter, you can't change culture in 3 years. It will take a lot longer,
Mm.
which I agree. However, you can change some culture in 3 years. And that's how we started. And we started from basic stuff. Culturally, we were in a position, the company always wanted to look good. So
Mm.
they would do anything to look good and protect reputation and protect brand. And I had to change that a fair bit. I said, well, I don't want to look good. It's irrelevant. I need to be good, which really means that whatever doesn't quite work, it will have to be put a light on, and then we're going to have to deal with that rather than just pretend that it's okay.
Mm.
Um, Nimble and flexible for us was quite important. We had a lot of overhead, and the value was not, well, for any service provider, value is hardly ever created in the office. It is created in the office in a strategic sense, but we creating value in the field. So started to engage with the organization at levels where um, people basically were not accustomed to. I had to go and see people in the field, and they said, "Well, I haven't seen a managing director for the last 10 years." And then of course when they started seeing me every month, they thought maybe something is wrong. Why am I coming so often? Uh, I've been looking at competency and what competent meant to us, and then competency of leaders as well. Maybe it's my engineering background. I don't believe leaders can be empty of competence. They need to be competent at something, either technical competence or whether they're HR or accounting or legal. But in whatever their profession is, they need to be competent because they got to anchor themselves onto something. Um, Culturally, again, we had to move into a hunting culture. We were more gardeners, so to speak. People were quite happy to have a patch and take care of the patch, and if that patch works well, then they were happy. A hunting means you're actually moving and you're growing and you're developing not just the business but your own people. So um, I can talk about culture for a long time because that was at the essence of the company change. Focus was important. We had, can't remember how many, 30, 40, 50 customers. Now we have nine. And we had nine 3 months after I started. It was pretty difficult to go to customers and say, with all due respect, we are not going to continue because this is the company focus. And nothing wrong with the customers
Okay.
that we had.
Yeah.
It's just that we had to focus on energy. And that was our direction. So we didn't want to be all things to all people, made it quite clear. Well, that included a lot of changes in costs and overheads and the type of people we had and whatnot. Because we were so desperate to look good, we had 25 KPIs and we moved those 25 to 2, safety and profitability. So basically we said, we want to keep our people safe and then we need to make money. Now, that was culturally, people struggle with that because for
Yeah.
years they felt comfortable to see a lot of other things being achieved. So I guess the number of things, and they're all going to revolve around not just defining the culture, but actually go for it. And some things we could change quite fast, like, for example, focus. I didn't need to wait 10 years to change that focus. That could have, been achieved quicker.
So you spoke a lot about people and teams,
Hmm.
and went to the field and everything. Usually, when a business is going through changes and in any way, what have you seen is the impact of the team, and how do you make sure that the team is aligned to this type of a transformation?
Well, a number of things. First, presence. 5 years ago, I started 1 day a week being out there in the field, talking to them, understanding their work and their challenges. And 5 years later, I'm still doing that. Now, it's not just myself, but my entire leadership team does it, and so on and so forth. So being close to where the value is created, I found it important. Second, you probably gather, I don't use a lot of corporate speak. Uh, Communication had to be effective in a sense of they needed to understand and they needed to hear. So changing language to actually suit um, the conversation was quite useful. And then obviously follow up. People always have a lot of needs, and people have a lot of perceptions, and it takes time to improve. You can't fix everything in a week or in a year or even in 5 years.
Right.
But whatever we as a team started to promise that we will do, we have done it every time. And we were very diligent on that. So the notion of trust started to appear in our culture. And rightly or wrongly, we decided, and we didn't want to join the trust economy, but we wanted to be trusted by our people. And then we thought, well, if our people trust us, then maybe our customers will trust us, and then the shareholders will trust us. And that led to a different conversation. So I guess, there was I keep referring to a few things because I'm talking about those in a business. In Greek mythology, there was a giant called Antaeus, and he was very strong, invincible, but only if he was touching the ground, the earth. The moment he was lifted, he was vulnerable. It's the same for us, the leadership team. We got to be connected to the ground and to the roots. Otherwise, we can fly at 50,000 miles and have all these fancy ideas and, models and everything kind of works. Ultimately, somebody needs to execute that. And
Yeah.
they're not going to execute because we just went in, or at least in our business, that we presented somewhere something. That's definitely not sufficient.
Okay.
So communication had to be effective.
Okay. So the teams connect more when you trust, they trust their leaders, they trust exactly what's going on.
Yes, and takes time. That trust takes time. It's a natural barrier that needs to be overcome, and only leaders can overcome that barrier. People that deliver on a ground level, they're not really going to reach out to build a trust. It's our job to do that.
Hmm. Okay. So communication, trust, along with that, what are some of the other critical elements leaders should keep in mind while going through these changes?
Well, courage is something that I've been trying to um, keep alive because it takes courage to do a transformation. You don't have the solutions all the time. You try some and might not work, and you got to have the courage to fail, and then feel supported when you fail. And myself and the board and the shareholders, you can tell people that they're supported, but they're not going to trust until they see it. and obviously they need to fail first, and then the truth comes out. So I guess that was one thing. We also created an environment of no aristocrats. There are no people waltzing around with very important titles that have no value. And that was quite specifically built that way. And there are no cheerleaders either. Cheerleaders, I see that they're people who, constantly write and talk, and they acknowledge, and they support, but they're really not in a value chain. If you look at what is exactly what they're producing or helping or assisting, is not there. Uh, that was quite difficult because Western culture would, well, at least when I started here, we had a lot of aristocrats and a lot of cheerleaders. So eliminating them, and then, as I mentioned before, accept failure, learn from it, and try and not just learn people who fail to learn, is actually try and educate others.
Wow, so as we come to the wrap up of this podcast, Peter, what would be your advice to people who want to succeed in life overall? You've started off, you've had, been this in the C-suite roles of companies. You have brought about business transformation, seen so many things. You've shared so many nuggets. But if you were to leave the audience with something very critical as a piece of advice, what would that be for you?
Well, I guess teach others and work with them to build their career to be better. I hope that everybody who's actually part of the team will be a lot better after I leave that team than they were when we started. And I'm saying that in a sense of whatever I know, I share, and whatever I see good at others, I learn. So I don't know. I don't have a specific formula. It's just, probably if you ask me, what do you do all day? Well, all day I'm looking for ways to train others.
Wow. So you're empowering others and inspiring them to do their best, basically. Wow, that's superb. Peter, thank you so much. I know how your schedule is, but you've taken the time to come on the podcast. So thank you so much for your valuable time and insights.
No problem, Payal. Good to see you again. Stay
Thank
in touch.
you. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
this one's for our audience. This is Peter Lancov and Payal Nanjiani, wishing you loads of success in your career life. God bless.
Thank you so much.